Well, welcome to the new year, 2025. Ooh, you guys ready? No? Okay. I don't blame you. New year means new things, right? An election year, so we got a new administration, we got new things happening all around the world, all kinds of new things popping up everywhere. So, how does that affect us? You know, I was talking to the teens this morning, and when you talk to and you start explaining things that are going on in schools, parents, if you don't know what's going on in your kid's school, you need to get engaged. But the difficulties they have to share Jesus with their family, their friends, those that are around them, there's a lot of obstacles there. I remember being young, I remember learning about Jesus, and I use we're called to be lights of the world. Did you know that? How's your light shining today? I remember singing it growing up, let your light shine. My light shined really bright for a very brief point of time. It was kind of like if you've been in the teens class, they got their dim lights, right? They're comfy lights. And they have these comfy lights turned on, and if you turn those off, let it get good and dark, and then flash the big light, one of them said, ow, it hurt. That's the kind of light I had as a kid. I got the ow Jesus light, boom, all at once. And as I got to about 13, 14 years old, that light faded. That light faded to, the sound of, or the different things in my life. We're talking girls, cars, other things, not Jesus. So it wasn't a constant light that was in my life. It wasn't that my light that I was carrying around was a light that shined bright all the time. When I did carry it, it was shining pretty bright. Isaiah 43:18-19 says, "Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make roads in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." That's what happened when my light came on as a kid. And that road got abandoned really quick. But I was close to God. I did those things when I could walk around on our farm, and I could spend time with God in my life. I talked to him. And it doesn't matter whether you were a kid and you did that, or maybe you found God when you were older and you did all those great things. It was new. And you learned all about Jesus, and you learned truths, and you learned all these things that made him very personal to you. But if you haven't noticed, sometimes you lose that. You don't maintain that relationship. I didn't continue to rebuild or to build on that relationship. So my old life kind of faded away and with Jesus, and I ended up in a life that was without Jesus. But when I came back with a better than a flash of light. It was a good steady light that came back. And I realized that knowing Christ and having Christ in my life was one of those things that needed to change my life permanently for good. I realized everything that I'd done in the past really didn't matter. What mattered was what I was doing with Jesus Christ and what the future held. So as I built that relationship, my old life began to fade away. I became new. Everything that I didn't stick in my pocket and keep got washed away. I gave up all kinds of sinful parts of my life. I gave up all kinds of things that I normally did. So I was made new. I spent a lot of time with God in my life, and everything changed. My life had, anybody ever have a new car? Get the new car smell? That was my life. You miss the new car smell? There are things in our lives that we need to cling to. That relationship grew. I became new, not renewed, not something that I drug in from the past. That's not what Christ said. He goes, I'm not just going to give you a paint job. Christ makes you new. A brand new me. And the brand new me was nothing like the old me. The fruit of my spirit turned to love, to joy, to peace, to all the long suffering. It had all those aspects. And those were all gifts of God in my new life with him in it. And it was that way in every way. Now, we all stumble in life. And thankfully, we have an amazing God. Amen. And he's always been amazing. When you look at Adam and Eve in the garden, when you see what happens in the garden, Adam and Eve, well, they partake of the fruit of the tree, which is a bad thing because it's one tree they weren't supposed to look at. They were warned, don't look at that tree. Don't go to it. Don't eat of it. Don't do those things. But we see that breakdown happen with Eve. And then, of course, Adam willingly partakes of the fruit too. God knew what they did. God knew that they had sinned. God knew that they were hiding in the garden. He knew all those things. Yet we see God seeking the sinner. He calls out, Adam, where art thou? Where are you at, Adam? And God was looking to give Adam and Eve a new beginning. Even though their life had led them down the wrong path, doing the wrong thing, he was willing to give them a new beginning. Unfortunately, they didn't take responsibility. They made a bad choice. And they blamed. Adam blamed Eve. Eve blamed the snake. The question is, did God give up? And no, he did not. So when we look at the great leaders in the Bible, man, we look at these and we see all the accomplishments of these great leaders in the Bible, all these wonderful things that they accomplished. And many times we don't focus on their lives before. We don't really look at them too much, what happened before. We like the effect and the after effect of their new life. But we don't look at what happened before God called them. Moses is one of those stories. We tend to look at what Moses achieved, leading to the Hebrews out of the captivity, doing the great things, building the sanctuary, all those things Moses did. He was a great man. We know most of the highlights. We know that to save Moses' life, his mother floated him down the stream. The Pharaoh's daughter adopts him. We know those highlights. He was raised in a palace as a member of the royal family. He was raised better than we were. But Moses killed the guard. Not only did he kill the guard, he buried him out in the desert. Then Moses fled. And that was sin. We don't focus on that part. Moses was a murderer. So if you're thinking, well, God doesn't want me because I've done things in my life, you look at Moses. Moses was a killer. Now, you got to look at that. How long did God have to work with Moses after that so that God could actually use him? Yeah, it was a while. So I'm thinking Moses was as stubborn, if not more stubborn than me. He was difficult to work with, apparently. Moses had a few flaws that made him really difficult for God to work with him. Moses' temper really got the better end of him. It kept him out of the promised land. It kept him from receiving the blessing. But God never gave up on Moses. We know this because we see Michael the archangel contending over the body of Moses in the book of Jude. So apparently Moses was important to God, even at the end of his life, even though he was a killer, even though he had a horrible, horrible temper, even though he couldn't go into the promised land, God still cared for Moses. So apparently for Moses, there was a new beginning in which God was able to use Moses to save the Hebrews. You know, God clearly cannot be outdone, not even by himself. We cannot limit what God will do based on what God has done. Now, we've looked at Adam and Eve. We look at Moses. Later, we see this young boy with God on his side slay a giant called Goliath. That's a good story. The young boy became King David. So he had God on his side to slay a giant, but did he live a godly life? No. We know all about his woman problems. We know about his kingdom problems. We know about his family problems. He became King David, but did he live a perfect life? No. He failed God. He failed God in so many different ways. And you wonder how God can make those statements about him. He had the affair with Bathsheba. He had her husband killed. He was a killer too, by the way. David's household was in turmoil, and yet David was a man after God's own heart. You ever stop and think? God used David to do great things. After all the sin and failure in David's life, apparently somewhere in his life there was a new beginning. And I look at the examples and, I figure I'm in pretty good company. I hope. January is a fascinating month, isn't it? How many of you made New Year's resolutions? I've seen some of you at your parties on New Year's, all happy, dressed up, ready for new beginnings, right? How's your New Year's promise going? It's fascinating because the statistics tell us that January is the month where they attempt to make more changes in their lives than any other time of the year. Apparently, this is a time when we get a new beginning. It's a new year. Everything got put away with Christmas. Resolutions, changing jobs, working 2 jobs to obtain more material. God's aware that we all need new beginnings. But here's the question. Why do we wait till New Year's to start something new? Because I've heard people all through November and December, hey, my New Year's resolution. We're already looking forward to our New Year's resolution on the 1st of January. And guess what? It's November. Why wait till the 1st of January, make the change before then? God's aware we all need new beginnings in our lives. In fact, he granted it. He granted it with Jesus Christ. So why wait? Why do we wait till the last minute? No wonder God doesn't tell us when he's coming. Because we'd wait till the last minute and say, okay, hey, God's coming next week. I'm going to become a Christian now. I'm going to stop that bad behavior now because God's going to be here next week. And we've seen it in the 1800s, that bittersweet moment. Everybody running around trying to fix all their things because God's coming. It's coming up in October. God's going to be here. We got to settle our differences. We got to pray. They would pray so hard, waiting for that moment because God's coming. Why did they wait till that moment? Why can't we have a new beginning right now? Second Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things become new. You notice it says all, right? Not some of the things. You didn't get a paint job over at what do they call that shop? The cookie shop where they can do one-day paint job. You didn't get one of those paint jobs. You didn't get a wash and a wax and call yourself new. If you're in Christ, you're a new creature. In other words, as soon as you take on Christ, you need to become new. And Christ does that. Not some things, all things. Born again means to be born from above, born anew. The Greek words anothen, meaning from above, from the higher places where we don't get to see, but they come from heaven and they come of God. So all new beginnings begin with Jesus Christ in your life. And he's the only one that makes you realize that you need to start over as well. You know, I've had to stop and fix a lot of things in my life. And I look back at Moses. 40 years. How many things do you think Moses had to fix in 40 years? There was a whole lot of things wrong. I look back at my life, there was a whole lot of things that I needed to fix. And it couldn't come from within, it had to come from above. Probably should have been the name of the sermon today. He's the only one that makes you realize you literally have to start over. You literally have to become new. Aren't you tired of starting over? Starting something new again and again and again? So how many of you last year said, I'm going to make a new lifestyle for myself? And this year on the 1st of January, when the bells rang and the boom booms went off, how many of you said again this year, I'm going to make a new lifestyle for myself? And next year, you're going to go, well, I'm going to make a new lifestyle for myself. If that's your New Year's resolution year after year after year, aren't you tired of that? Aren't you tired of starting over again and again and again? Never really succeeding. You know, God can deliver us like that. But it takes Jesus in your life for a renewal. Otherwise, you're just getting a paint job. It takes Christ in your life, fully in your life, and you become new. And it not only makes you new, but it also makes it eternally new. So God can deliver us immediately. Whatever we face, whatever we choose to do, God can do that for us. We can't do it from within because it's a struggle. It's always a struggle to make new changes in our lives. If you're trying to do it on your own, I guarantee you, you're struggling. I've done those struggles, and I failed every time I struggled. The good news is that God says, I want to do something new in your life. I want to give you a fresh start. I want to give you a new beginning. A new beginning means that you stop where you're at, you get off that set of tracks, and you get on a brand new set of tracks, and you start brand new. That's why he tells us not to look back, don't dwell on the things in the past, because the past is like putting trailers on behind you and it just slows you down. God says, those things are gone. I'm going to make you go fast. You're going to do the right thing. You're going to do all those things. You're going to be free. A fresh start, a new beginning. And this new fresh start is going to be with God in your life. So at the beginning of a new year, it's customary for us to think of this at a time of new beginnings, a time of new resolutions. But the truth is simple. The truth is that with God, any time is a good time for a new beginning. Anytime. And sometimes we just need a fresh start. Isaiah 43:15-17 says, God overruled in the affairs of men and gave them, their forefathers, a new start. Thus says the Lord, who makes a way in the sea, a path through the mighty waters, who brings forth the chariots and the horses, the army and the power. They shall lie down together. They shall not rise. They are extinguished. They are quenched like a wick. God takes us places. God takes us out of places of dependence. And then he creates a brand new beginning. He gives us brand new blessings. any day that we want to do it. It's very simple. Don't look back. Isaiah 43:18 says, do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. That's how you win. If you're remembering the things that you did last week, last month, last year, that you were unsuccessful at, you know what you did? You never gave it to God. You kept it. And you decided you don't need God to change that in your life. You've decided you're going to do it all by yourself, and you failed. You know how I know you failed? Because you're still contending with it. And that truth has haunted me for almost 30 years. Because I was afraid to give something to God. It's one thing to remember the past successes, but it's another thing to live in the past. And that's what happens to us. That's why your New Year resolutions don't stick, because you're still living in 2024. You're still living in 2023 or 2020. Hate to go back much farther than that, because kids all think I'm already old anyway. But you can live all the way in the past, even today. Our faith is often limited by what we have experienced in the past. We limit ourselves. God doesn't limit us. Israel was where they were because of their history of failures, because of their disobedience. Yet God says, don't look back at the past. He makes all things new. So when we come to Christ, we become a new creature. All things become new. Why are we looking in the past? God's creator, right? He's the king. Isaiah 43:15 tells us, I am thy Lord, your Holy One, the Creator of Israel, your King. So if he makes all things new, that means he's not staying in the box that we put him in, right? He can do wonderful things in your life, things that you've never even seen, things that you never even thought you would be able to accomplish. God can do that in your life. And you know what? When you overcome something, you get that excitement that, man, God really did this, and you share it with somebody else. Guess what? He's only getting started. Trust me, there'll be more to come. Isaiah 43:19, behold, I will do a new thing. It shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make roads in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. You don't think of the obstacles. If you look at the wilderness, anybody ever go through Kansas? Oh, I used to live in Kansas. You leave Topeka and you're headed across Kansas and you're going to Colorado. That is the longest drive in the entire planet. You're in the wilderness. Doesn't seem like you're ever going to get there. Well, there's only one other place that does that, and that's Nebraska. And you look up and you can see the Badlands out there in Nebraska, and you're like, oh, I'm going to be there in about an hour. No. 3 hours later, it's still the same view. It seems like it's running away from you. But he can make a road there that'll work. Maybe you're fighting in a jungle. If you've ever been in a jungle, don't recommend it. But a real jungle that has no roads in it or anything else, you're not walking through the jungle. And those pretty little colored frogs don't lick them. There's all kinds of dangers in the jungle. There's all kinds of things in the jungle. What about deserts? What about the desert? Now, I'll tell you what, I did survival training in the desert. It was only 4 days. 4 days in the desert's a long time, let me tell you, because you're looking for water constantly. And then you only travel at night, and everything at night comes out that can kill you. Literally everything in a desert can kill you. Desert's a dangerous place. You're not going to go very far without water. God says he's going to make a river in the desert. He did it for the Hebrews. You think he can't do it in your desert? You think he can't fix your jungle? You think he can't get you across the wilderness? Once God delivered Israel by the path through the water, literally divided the water. Now water will make a path in the desert. And he did that. God is not predictable. He does not deliver the same way each time, and he's not going to deliver the way you prayed it. I guarantee it. It's going to come a whole new way. He might heal one today, and that's not the way he's going to heal the other one tomorrow. But you need to become a blessing to others. Isaiah 43:20 says, the beasts of the field will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert, and to drink to my people, my chosen. You were created for God's praise. If he created you, why would he leave you to die in the desert? I bring all these up because there's people that are dealing with addictions. There are people that are dealing with things in their lives they can't overcome. You think God's going to leave you there? Would he really leave you in that dark place? Our desert experiences are because we see ourselves alone. So if you're in the desert struggling for water, struggling for all the things that give you life, you're alone because that's the way you perceive yourself. So it's real simple. Step one, quit making excuses. Man, we do that a lot. I had 30 years of excuses. You know that? 30 years I made excuses before I realized I just got to stop making excuses. It's always too soon to quit. The Bible tells us to quit making excuses. Admit her fault. Give it to God, get on with her life because he's going to make you new. And I've discovered that people who are good at making excuses are rarely good at anything else, but they're really good at excuses. They spend all their energy thinking up reasons why they can't do something instead of how God can deliver them. Step two, act in faith. Simple. New beginnings come to those who step out in faith. Now you have to really stop and think about that. New beginnings come to those who step out in faith. To change anything in your life by the power of God, it takes faith. So you're like, yeah, I'll tell you what. The Egyptian army coming up behind you, it took faith for Moses to take that rod, strike that water, and God part the sea. It took faith. And you look through the Bible, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. You look through the Bible and you see everybody had to take one step forward in faith before God acted in a big way, whether it was for his people or for a single life. Even when you look at name changes and things that have happened, character changes in the Bible, it's because of faith. Matthew 9:29 says, then he touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, let it be to you. You know what? We should say that about 20 times today. According to your faith, let it be done for you. How's your faith? Life's full of choices. Chose to wake up this morning. Most of you did. You chose to eat breakfast. You chose to take a shower. We are all thankful for that. You chose to go to work or to go to school and this morning you decided I'm going to go to church. It's full of choices. You even chose what type of work or what kind of dress you were going to wear today, what you were going to have for breakfast. All those things were your choices. There are many things every day in your life that becomes a choice. And today, guess what? You still, as this day moves on, you have a choice. The new year, you know what? It's still a good time to make a choice. To begin new. To make a resolution with God, not with yourself, not with the new year, but with God Himself. And we'll choose a new walk with God in our life. A walk that's going to last not only today, not only tomorrow, but for all eternity. Or you can choose to walk alone through the desert. Pretty simple. It's your choice. God's not going to force you. It's your choice to step out in faith. It's your choice to choose God this day. It's your choice to let God create a new beginning, an all new you tomorrow. Matter of fact, you ask for it right now. Before you can walk out that door, God will have created a new you. Today is a choice. And right now you have a choice. You have a choice in your own heart today. You have a choice for the new year. And I pray that you choose God in that.